Start streaming. Let's see if this is going to work. I think it's going to work. I just got back from Spain. I'm still on Spain time, and I wanted to come in here and do some rush jobs. So I already did a couple of rush jobs, and there's only one left. And I thought this was such a classic that it would be fun to do a YouTube live stream on it. This is an iPhone 6S from Ralph. Ralph from New Jersey said yes to permission to video record the repair for live on YouTube. All right, so Ralph, what's wrong with your iPhone 6S? He says, I went into the steam room at the gym for 10 minutes. I love the steam room at the gym. In fact, I would pick a gym just because it had a steam room. Steam rooms are awesome. We got a new YMCA and it had a steam room, and I'm all about that. I don't think I'd take my phone in there though. Not if it was a 6S. The phone was in my pocket. And then he says about 4 days later, the screen would turn black for a few minutes, but he was still able to hear audio sounds like pressing of buttons. That's a good sign. But by day number 7, the screen went dark and it did not turn on again, but he was still able to hear a beeping sound when he plugged it into the charger. Took phone to a local repair shop where I would ultimately get told that my motherboard was compromised. All right, so local shop must have put just a new screen on this. That's what I would do first. And it sounds like there's bigger fish to fry. Now the 6S that has apparently no image but otherwise turns on, that's like some pretty classic old school problems that you can fix really fast. So let's jump in and see if this really does have one of those classic image problems. And let's see what you guys think is going to happen in chat. Is this going to be the blown backlight? Not usually a water damage thing. Or is it going to be the 1v8 image filter, which is at the top of the board, doesn't like to get wet? Or is it going to be your classic 5v7 image line is short? Let's hear what you guys think in chat while I open up the phone. I've been trying to figure out how to connect YouTube live stream with the iPad Rehab shopping channel. Oh, this doesn't look good already. Ralph didn't tell me that there's a prior repair attempt, so we're gonna have to jump this one right under the microscope. But so far, I have not been successful with connecting the YouTube stuff. But what we're gonna do first on this one is we're gonna connect this phone to DC power supply after we look under the microscope. Whoops, now I really messed up. DC power supply. Pin product. Hopefully it's meant so that as I use these things in the stream that you guys can see what they are and click on them and check it out at the store, but we'll see. Hi Jessa and iPad Rehab, greetings from holidays on a yacht in Greece. I want to go to Greece next. That is my, that was the second choice. I wanted to go to the Greek islands. I think that would be so cool. So I'd love to hear your recommendations. We just went to Mallorca and it was so cool, man. We went on some of these Airbnb experiences. I'm not really sure how I feel about the Airbnb experiences. It kind of seems, I don't know, like it's a great way for people like me to find out about things that I otherwise just wouldn't know about. Experiences. We went on, like some dude's boat, and he took us to like places where he went when he was growing up, and it was like, pretty fun. Yeah, missing a lot of screws in here. So I'm trying to just take apart this board so we can jump into it. So that might not be quite in focus. Let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. But at the same time, I feel like Airbnb, like they're charging this guy like a lot on commission and not really protecting him. He took us on this hike that was a little dangerous. And there was no liability waiver, like there was just no protection for this guy. He was fantastic though. I really had a great time. We did some hikes that started out with, go behind the sign that says don't hike here. And it took us to like this really breathtaking, cool old tower on a cliffside. And it was just a really, really pretty. But I don't know, I had to leave, I left a bad review for the other Airbnb. I'm curious what you guys would have done about it in chat. But let's talk about that in a little bit once we get this phone going and see what's up with it. So as you can see, somebody has desoldered the soldered on shield here. That is not something I would have done or would have expected to need to be done from the complaint that was given. So Ralph said his phone was working, he heard it on, no display. Well, that's likely going to be water damage right up here. So it really makes me nervous that someone has done a pretty serious surgery already to this board. So we'll have to find out. And I don't love it when people leave that out, you know. So, you know, if you've had somebody do prior microsoldering, that's pretty big variable to have on this board. So we'll just give it a shot. Let's jump in and see under the microscope, what does this look at? All right, sailing around Lefkada and Corfu Islands those days. All right, I feel like, did I miss a screw? Yep, there's a screw left right there for me to get out. Do you charge more if there's been a prior repair attempt? I do. So this one is no longer eligible for standard data. This would have been $300 standard data, but if somebody has already been microsoldering on the board, that just makes it so much more open-ended, right? If it was easy, it would be already fixed. It wouldn't even be here. So I know it's going to be challenging, and yeah, so prior microsoldering attempt not eligible for standard data. All right, let's head under the microscope and see what we can see under here. So let me get the hand cam off and the microscope cam on, and we are going to look together under here, at least in theory. All right. Okay, hello. Yes, prior microsoldering with a wire on the board. Huh. Oh, okay. Well, this is not the little easy live stream that I had planned. I probably should have taken a look at this board before saying, yeah, this will be easy, but it's here for Rush. So this guy's going to unfortunately have to get requoted. But while we're looking at it, let's see, can we make sense of why there's a wire on this board and what was the first guy thinking? So let's kind of see. Let's start here, I guess, before we ask the question of whether or not this phone is even on. I see solder balls popping out there, here, which is, you know, somebody has dug up and replaced this chip, which again is like not necessary for data recovery. That's backlight. You don't need backlight for data. These ones really make me sad because this is important enough for somebody to send it here for rush data. That means they really care about it, and it's kind of sad to see. Nobody should be messing around with backlight when somebody cares about their data. Okay. All right, I think let's go ahead and investigate this area. Let's head to ZXW and see if we can make sense of why. Why would someone have put a wire with green blood? Here, they're connecting. Let's look really close. They've got a wire that's going from right here. This is a test point, and it's going to a bunch of goo right in there, and it's all covered up. And then they have put a wire here. What? That's not even, is that even where a filter goes? I don't think so. It's been a while, but I really don't think you're supposed to do that. All right, let's see if we can make sense of all of this. Let's head to ZXW and let's start with this big long wire and see if we can guess. Why would somebody put a wire there? What kind of problem were they trying to solve? All right, so now I've got to dig up ZXW, which I don't think is even open yet, so let me try to find that. At least he used solder mask. Yeah. At least he used solder mask. Yes, he's keeping things on the up and up. All right, let me go dig up ZXW, and let's see. I'm going to hit skip on that, and I haven't been here for a few days, so everything is moved around. There's my ZXW. ZXW, something I can try in my little list. I really want to figure out how to do this sort of like link. I guess I get asked questions all the time about, oh, what's that thing that you're using that shows where everything is? Here it is, ZXW. ZXW is one of several different Chinese products that help us just see where things are on the board. All right, so let's open up ZXW so that you guys can see it. All right, now let's connect that to the right window. That should work. That should be open. Let's look for the 6S and then bring you guys along. So I'm doing this live. This is a phone that should have been easy. Maybe it will still be easy, but my hopes are diminishing once I found a missing soldered-on shield and a big wire going across the board. But it should have been easy. This was a straightforward, went into the steam room phone. All right, let's see. ZXW, why you no worky? All right, let me just hit add another ZXW. Add window, sure, window 3, window 3. No, it can only find the easy power. All these little things don't like to play together. Should I bother closing it? I think you guys really need to see my ZXW. Well, all right. I did the unthinkable, and no, that's not going to help us. That's not ZXW at all. I said yes to an update, I think, on open broadcaster here. And now it is not letting me add my window. I can see ZXW, but I don't have a way to share it with you guys. Let's try one more time. Window capture. And all right, let's see if I close easy power. Now, can it see ZXW? Nope. I can't close all of Open Broadcaster or it will end the stream. So I'm a little bit running out of options. All right, let's try to add this window again. Add window. This is the dark side of live streaming, I think. Hey, did it. Achievement unlocked, success. Yes. All right. Let me delete these other ones. Delete. Yes, delete. Delete that, delete. Yes, delete. The one that really doesn't like to play well with others is the the DC power, which I still need. I'll have to bring it back. All right, here we are, ZXW. Now let's try to hunt down this wire. So it's something over here in this area, and it looks like there's 3 test points here, and I think that our guy has attached to the 3rd one. Yeah, I can still see the first 2, so it's right here, this guy. PP, LCM, BL, anode, BL, backlight. So if you are wanting to get Ralph's data out of the phone, which is so important to Ralph that he sent it here rush, you don't need backlight, so why are you fixing backlight? Don't worry about backlight. Backlight is like not important. All right, so this guy has made a wire connecting this test point, which goes to the connector. So let's look at this and see, where does this test point go? This test point is the same wire that goes into the board over here to the connector. So right here at the connector. So he has made a wire that appears to be connecting the test point to the connector. But the test point and the connector are already connected because look at them, they're all in red right now. So that tells us that's all one wire. Where did he probably intend for it to go? Well, let's look at the circuit. The circuit goes from the connector and then it goes to FL4211, a filter. And then it continues through the filter because the filter itself is a wire. And let's click the other side. So from the connector through the filter, it's then going to go to, back to the backlight driver chip, which he has replaced. a capacitor and a couple of diodes. So if you were going to try to close an open line, the likely jumper you would want to run would be from back here at the chip out to the connector. So you could actually run a jumper from this area over here to the test point that way. And that would kind of close an open that was caused by the filter being blown. What does this have to do with anything? Nothing as far as Ralph's data. We don't need any of this. So let's just kind of look into this whole area and ask, do we have the right resistance to ground at the connector for this circuit? Yes or no? And if we do or don't, that'll kind of give us a place to start. So let's just look at that before we ask the real question, which is, does this phone even turn on? Because again, we don't need to fix any backlight in order to get Ralph's data out of this. All right, so let's take a reading. We're going to go to, let's see, I'm going to close our ZXW, and we're going to look at the microscope. All right. Please, could you do a video on what you do after the live stream to get the data to the customer? That's a good idea. We talk about that a lot in class, and it kind of takes a long time. Let's see. The blueprint viewer looks like Office 2003. It does. That is true. I wonder if they originally took the phone for a repair rather than data recovery. Well, I think that if you would still have a conversation if you were like, no, can't fix it. Before, this shop would have probably told them, you know, you need to go find somebody to get your data. I don't really know. Another guy from Greece coming to visit you. Better, you got to recommend a good Airbnb. I'm going to go to Greece next. Need some tips on that. All right, here's the reading that we're going to take with the multimeter using the fine point leads. This one is really, really good. There's fine point leads, there's ultra fine point leads, and one thing that we have seen a lot of students do is they will foul the connector. So I don't know if you can see this or not. It's a complete waste of time, most likely. But I just dragged to the shopping tab the ultra fine point leads. The ultra fine point leads let you actually take measurements inside connectors without sort of bending them to be too big. And on the 6S, that is a really common way. Just stretching that connector out too much, you fix everything, and it still doesn't work. All right, so we're going to go to this circuit here, which is backlight anode, which goes from down here at the giant capacitor, and it should come all the way up here and get delivered to the connector to, I believe, right here. And it does. 0.51. 0.51 is intact. Backlight is making it to, from back here all the way up here. What happens? I'm just curious what happens, just totally just curious. What if we kick off this jumper? Is the jumper actually doing anything or not? Let's find out. What do you guys think is going to happen? I'm just going to delete the jumper and find out, does it create an open line there? Is the jumper actually what's closing this line, or is that jumper just a piece of wire sitting there? I don't know, but I think it'd be fun to find out. All right. We can't see. Oh, thanks, Greg. Greg went and found the link for the ultrafine point multimeter leads in the store. You know what? I'm starting to think that Greg, the moderator, is a better resource than all of the engineering of Google that was supposed to make it easy for me to do these things. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. I do think that's like really, really helpful. All right, so here we go. I'm going to knocking the jumper loose on one side, so we've created an open. Now let's hope, for the sake of this first guy, that does create an open and that jumper was in fact closing that line, but I don't know if it is or not. Let's find out. All right, diode mode says without the jumper, the line is open. All right, so that means that buried in here in the green goo, there must have been a blown filter with a ripped up pad, really, really bad, on the unusual side, on the side that goes to the connector. Usually the side that's blown up is on the side of the chip. So that's kind of weird, but we'll put that back. so why not? But regardless, it doesn't really have anything to do with why can we not see anything, because we have to worry about image, but we don't really care about backlight. Backlight is completely unnecessary because you can just shine a light and get the data out of this if it was important. All right, so we'll stick that back on there and check to make sure that we have returned our normal resistance to ground. And is it 0.5? Yes, back to 0.5. Okay, now let's look at this. We got a wire right here. What's going on right here? See this right here, guys? We've got a second surgery. Somebody has put a wire right here. All right, so let's look up and say, why would somebody do that? Head to ZXW and let's research it. Okay, so that is almost certainly a wire replacing FL4213. I've never seen anybody put a wire here before. So what does this line do? This is PPLCM-BL CAT. The CAT are the return tracks from the screen's LED strip back to the board. And FL4213, if you took it off, you would still see the image, you'd still see backlight, it would just have a shadow. So the problem that you would be trying to solve if you put a jumper here would be if you had sort of a half-dim screen, right? So you would have already brought back image, you can see image, you could recover data, you would have backlight, you would even be able to see it. It just wouldn't be full backlight, it would just have a shadow. Doesn't have anything to do with Ralph's data. We're just going to leave that alone. It doesn't have anything to do with us. Okay, so now we've kind of looked around a little bit, and we've seen that there's been just a lot of generalized monkeying around in the backlight circuitry on this 6S. So let's take backlight and put it in a mailbox. We'll come back to that. It's a luxury. We don't need to have backlight at all. Let's ask the real question. Does this phone still turn on? And if so, can it make image? Image we do need. We need image and touch, so we can type in that passcode and decrypt the data. All right, so let's go knock out whether or not this phone turns on. So how are we going to do that? We are going to go to DC power supply, and we're going to go with our squid. Here's our squid. There we go. Let's see what happens if I hit preview. I don't know, pin product, does that do anything? Squid, all right. Now I've got to hook up the DC power that I had just kicked off so that we could see ZXW. Man, you wouldn't believe how much multitasking goes on to have green screen, all these different camera angles to live stream this stuff. But we're gonna figure it out. All right, so I've got my software that lets you guys see my DC power. And I'm gonna see if I can bring it over here so that you guys can see it. There it is. And now I'm gonna demote, oh, not that, yeah, that. Demote that. And turn this on. All right, now I've got my 4 volts. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the squid. So I'm going to plug in the squid so that we can try to fire this phone up from DC power. DC power is really our gold standard. If this phone is able to boot, we'll see it on DC power. And if it's not, then we'll see it, what it actually does, and that will give us a lot of clues. So DC power is our tool. All right, let's go back to hand cam so that you guys can see us plug it in. All right, here it is. Here's the board. Here's our DC power. Okay, so let me make sure that looks like what I can see. Let's see. Yep, here it is. Okay. Okay. Now how are we going to prompt this thing to boot? We need to like press the power button, but there is no power button. If I had a charge port, we could plug in USB and prompt to boot with a charge port. But I don't have that either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prompt to boot with the tweezers. So let's see. Prompt, prompt, prompt. And now you can look at that DC power. and see that it is starting to move around. Will it actually boot though? Let's look at it. It looks a little booty. Look at that. Where is it? Right here. Here we go. Weatherman. Ding. Look at that. We're expecting this to move around like it is, and maybe even go up to like, you know, a little over half an amp and then kind of come back down a little bit. I think this phone likely is booting. I think a phone that's acting like this one, DC power, can make an image. And if you don't see an image, then that means troubleshoot image. So our next thing we want to do is stick a screen on it. We don't care about backlight, but we're going to figure out, can this phone make image? And we're going to go for image next. All right, so let's grab a screen. So rather than use his screen, which I'm not going to be able to see anything if backlight's not working, I need to get a screen where I can kind of do a little DIY backlight. Look at this 6S. So I like that. It prevents you from accidentally plugging it into the wrong phone. All right, so I have to do a little bit of screw work here. I'm going to take this back plate off of the screen just for purposes of being able to shine a light from behind it, because I'm going to suspect the backlight doesn't work. Because if backlight did work, then old Ralph would have never sent me this phone. He would have loaded his data from his 6S onto something else and be happy-go-lucky out in the world. Greetings from Vienna. Well, Vienna, I'll have to put that on my list. I've never been to Vienna. And our next, I decided for each kid, when they get to be a senior in high school, that kind of doing like a special, you know, like how do you celebrate the fact that your child is going to leave home? How dare they grow up after all of that ass wiping and answering questions and just listening to their incessant chatter for 18 years, then they have the audacity to just ditch me and leave. So like, how do you mark that occasion? So I decided to kind of take a special, you know, your senior year, end of your senior year kind of graduation trip. So my son picked Barcelona, and that's where we just went. So my other son is going to be 18 in 2 years, and he wants to go to Greece. So I'm going to have more kids in order to go to Vienna, and that's not happening. All right, so we've got, well, these are made a little bit differently. Look at the cute little home button guy. I have a bad habit of not checking in to see about focus and things like that. Let me take off DC power. You've done your job. Okay, so what I like to do is to just pull this plate away so that I can see. There we go. Look at that. Just kind of peel it back. Boom. Now, see the little strip of LEDs? There's your backlight. That's the actual backlight. So what I can do is just hold it up to the microscope and look at that. Let the microscope light be the backlight, and then it'll just look bright as day if there's image. All right, so we're going to plug this screen in, and we're going to find out whether or not there is image or not in Ralph's phone here. All right. Rich here from Hometown Computers in Colorado. Have used you guys for many successful repairs. Thank you. Well, thanks for trusting us with your stuff, Rich. Fantastic. All right. Plugging this in. All right, so all I'm going to do is stick a screen on it and go back to DC power. And maybe you guys can still see the DC power. I got to bring it back. DC power. There we go. Knock that off. That's working. And we're going to plug this sucker in. Let's see, 6S. All right, so I plugged this in using the iPad Rehab Squid and DC power, and now we've put a screen on it. Okay, so here's the real experiment. I'm going to pull down the screen like that, and maybe for you guys I could just use this light from over here. I'm going to take this part off. All right, now let's fire it up. And we'll be able to see that it's booting because of DC power. And then we'll be able to see with our eyeballs whether or not there's an image on the screen. All right, so I'm going to prompt to boot with tweezers. Prompt, prompt, prompt to boot. Looks like it's booting. Hey, it looks like backlight is on. Look at that, the actual backlight. Let me turn this away. The backlight itself is lit up. So it does have backlight. Good job, Ralph's first guy. You brought back backlight. So backlight's working. But backlight doesn't help us with image. So first guy didn't recognize. Backlight and image are two different circuits. It's completely different. And we have to fix them both. So you can't just fix your display by fixing backlight. You have to first fix image. And then, of course, you really don't need backlight at all. But at least we know, good job, first guy. Your jumper is working, and your little cathode filter is working because we can see every single one of these LEDs is lit up. If that cat filter was open or missing or damaged, then we would only see one side. All right. What happened to it? Did it click off? OK. All right. So now we're going to say, why is this phone not able to make image? All right. Why can it not make image? Let's go on a hunt for like the classic problems that happen to the 6S before we have to like really think about it. So let's drill down. Let's go under the microscope, and let's take a couple of measurements. And we're just going to hit the highlights, the classic faults. All right, so there's a couple classic faults that it looks like somebody has already tested for, because I can see this telltale sign that there has been, the coating has scraped off of these components, right? So these components, 1, 2, 3, 4 components, they are all on the same line, PP5V7 image power line, and it does often go short. Is it short? Let's find out. So we're going to use the multimeter with the fine point leads to ask, is this line short? And it is interesting. This is a really good one. All right. So, is it short? Well, what we're going to do to answer that question is find out, does it have the normal resistance to ground? So does it have a normal resistance to ground? How do we ask? What's the resistance to ground? We use diode mode. And you hear me mention diode mode. There's a video on the channel, how to use diode mode. Diode mode, diode mode. If you come to our training, it's diode mode city, right? So how to use diode mode. Diode mode is the way that we can tell the difference between something that is partially short and therefore bad versus something that is not short at all. We can use continuity method or the beep mode to see if something is full short. But full short, beep mode, does not tell you if there's some resistance in the line, it's just not enough. And I think that's what's going on here. How do we know for sure? Well, let's look up using ZXW to see what is the normal diode mode reading in that line. So let's jump on that. And where did I put ZXW? Because now it's called something like Window Capture 5. Oh, I don't remember. DC power, Window Capture 5. There we go, DC power hidden and ZXW bright. Okay, so we're gonna look down here. This guy, C4200. He is on a line called PP5V7 LCM. This is power for that actual image, the Apple logo, right? The normal diode mode reading, we can actually see it here on ZXW, right here. Somebody from China just wrote it on there for us. 0.5. 0.5 diode mode units, right? 0.5. So 0.5 is what this line should read. Let me show you what it actually reads. Right, so 0.5, we can measure it right here in the connector at that second point. And because I didn't intend to do a lot of multimeter work on this, I haven't set up the on-screen multimeter. So I've got 3 multimeters. The trust-based multimeter, where I just tell you what it says. The on-screen multimeter, which is a real pain in the ass, so I'm not setting it up. And then we got this one here, which is, let's see if I can just show you guys. Let's get rid of ZXW, bring back the hand cam. There it is, hand cam. And we're gonna have to just remember, we're looking at point, supposed to be 0.5 0.5. 0.5. All right, so I'm going to measure right in the connector at that second spot. And what do we get? Did we get 0.5? No. Do we get 0.0? No, we get 0.1. 0.1. That is a short. 0.1 is a partial short. And if we wanted to see that, we could even, go instead of diode mode, we could go to ohms to ground. And we could see, ohms to ground on this line is, let's make it so you guys can see, ohms to ground, which is the sort of like laborious way to measure shorts. It says it's about 172.6. Thinking about it. 172 ohms. 172 ohms. That's like not anywhere close to what it should be, which is, I don't know, but I bet it's going to be like a mega ohm, like 1,000, a million, right? It's going to be way, way, way more than 172 ohms. But 172 ohms is not zero. So this line is short, but it's a partial short. Think of it like putting a pinhole in a balloon where it can't hold the pressure. But why? Why is this line got a hole in it? Well, it's going to be any capacitor or chip that is on that line is allowing a little leak to ground, letting some juice go through to ground. So which one could it be? It could be the ones that the prior guy has almost certainly already known to look here because this is a common fault. However, he must have just said, I guess it's not short because he was probably testing for a full short just beeping to ground. That's my guess. I don't know for sure. All right, because he's uncovered 1, 2, 3, 4. These guys are all capacitors that are on that PP5B7 line. Look at it. It's the guy here, and then on the edge, up here, and then there's sort of 3 in a row, that one there. Let's look at ZXW so that you can see that. Where did it go? Here we go, ZXW. So this same line goes from this capacitor here, the neighbor, and then look, 1, 2, 3, that guy there. This guy over here is actually unrelated. It's on a touch line. But he's poking around here at these same things. Also on that same line, that we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And then little guy, 5. And then, of course, the connector itself can't be short. So we've got 5 local capacitors that could be the cause of the short, and one more spot. If we flip the board over and we look on the back side, we could see there's another capacitor and then the original chip, Chestnut, that produces the 5.7 volts that goes out to power up that Apple logo. So let's go ahead and put our eyes on the back of the board and just look at Chestnut and that local guy. Let's see. All right, chat. Which of these, Chestnut or one of these 5 or 6 caps, what do you think is going to be the reason that this line has a partial short to ground? Watching from South Africa. All right, well, South Africa, it would also be super fun to go to. I'll have to put that on my list. Have to have some more kids to go on some more senior trips. Inject 80 volts, says Oliver. Well, I don't know about that. I think that Ralph would be pretty mad at me if I injected 80 volts. So back here, there does not appear to be any steam room damage, right? Remember, how did it come to be this way? Guy went into a steam room. So steam room damage is not happening back here. And that seems to be, possible, but it's kind of less likely. All right, so chat, do you guys have an idea? Where's the common fault here? What do you think? Looks really clean under Chestnut. Sure does. Chestnut, says Rob. Well, it could be any of these. It really could. And if we wanted to be really precise, we could use a thermal camera and solder a wire and see what gets hot and try to narrow it down. But because there's only 5 plus Chestnut, I'm going to go for using, I get to do another one of my things. I really want to know what happens. iPad Rehab Short Killer. Look at this. iPad Rehab Short Killer pin product. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but the iPad Rehab Short Killer, everyone's favorite tool. Here it is, the iPad Rehab Short Killer. I'm going to go for just the cap that it tends to usually be and see if that's what it actually is in this case. So what do I mean by that? The cap that it usually is. This is a fairly common signature problem on the 6S. These guys would get water, and water would kind of like get maybe like a drop. Look how it's not even like wet on the water's damage sticker, but like a drop of water would come in through the ear speaker, would kind of find its way around. All of this waterproofing would usually protect most of the components. So the drop would usually land kind of up here, and it would bother most of the time this guy here on the end. This one capacitor right here on the end. So just to rule that out, I'm just going to use the iPad Rehab short killer and knock it off. Now I'm only going to knock off just this one guy. If this is not the cause of the short, then the other guys I'm just going to kind of lift and replace and just kind of use the process of elimination to figure it out. All right, so this guy is now nudged off his pads. So now it's time to find out with the multimeter whether or not we have our 0.5 restored. 0.5 diode mode units to ground. Let's find out. Red probe on ground, and let's see, can you guys see? We'll go right here. 0.5! Let me show you guys that. Ha! I love it when a good old fashioned what's it probably gonna be, which really is just a lesson in what makes sense when you think about how did it come to be this way. Steam room damage. Steam room damage is not going to blow up stuff that makes you have to run wires all over the board, right? Steam room damage is going to do steam room damage kind of things. All right, so here we go. It was 0.1. Now it's 0.5. Achievement unlocked. That line was short because the multimeter told us it was short. It didn't look short. It didn't look bad. But the multimeter cannot lie. Multimeter is king. All right, now let's find out, is that the only thing wrong? And does that actually bring back image? Apple Bumpcaster says, so that shorted it out. All right, exactly my point. What was your point? It looks good. Poor guy. Yeah, well, you know, even the best looking children can sometimes be the ones that misbehave. All right, so we're gonna stick this back on here and let's find out. Is this gonna be enough to bring Ralph's phone back from the grave? What I'm really curious is whether or not it ever actually had anything wrong with Backlight, or like, why did he run that weird jumper? Like, that's not a common fault to have Backlight, like to rip up a pad on the connector side. Like, that just doesn't happen. I'm curious about, sometimes I just really wish I had a way to hit rewind on some of these and just see what happened. Because they're little detective stories. You know, they're fun. All right, let's find out. Is that going to be enough? Let me make it so that you guys can see. Why not? The DC power supply. And we're going to fire this thing up. All right, here's our DC power. We have plugged in a known good screen. We don't, since we know that Backlight works, since we saw it light up with our eyes, we don't really need this screen anymore. We could use a regular one, but why not? Why not just kind of play around with it just to show you guys something? All right, now here's the moment of truth. We see our Backlight. Do we have image? Oh, yes we do, yay, yay, achievement unlocked. Oh, I love this story, right? This is one where you really can only find it by using your brain, right? If you're used to solving these problems by like kind of this kind of please bro mode of that guy checked for this short, he uncovered these guys, he measured it, and when it didn't beep to ground, he was like, not short, not the problem, because it didn't have physical damage, it didn't tell you where to look. I love this case. This one is a really good teaching example. In fact, I might save it. I'm going to see if this guy will let me keep this phone, and I'm going to stick that guy back on there and stick it in the library for practical board repair school students to use to find out. Now, I know 6S's take a long time to boot. Come on, Ralph's phone. You got to boot up. You got to give us your data. All right, does he know his passcode? Yeah. All right. Yay! All right, so we have gotten to the passcode screen. Let's just make sure this works. Yeah, we got touch. All right. Yeah, path to data for Ralph. Excellent. So there you go. This one is going into the ready to recover. Is my comments being shadow banned? I don't know. I was mentioning the mad dentist method to remove that cap. Yes, the mad dentist method, right. Also known as the iPad Rehab short killer, safe, effective, no risks. I'm not putting heat on the board, right? I'm going to stick this cap right back on there. Thanks for the stream. It was a fun ride, so we're on to recovery now. Yes, and for me, I am about to go meet my all-girls engineering team. They built a vehicle out of stuff they found on the side of the road, and they won at the New York State level in the Odyssey of the Mind competition, and we're heading to the World Finals. It's an awesome program. If you have kids, if you are a kid, go get yourself on an OM team for Odyssey of the Mind. And we're heading to Michigan on Wednesday morning for the World Finals, so wish them luck. We're going to go compete against teams from all over the place in Michigan. And if you want to support our team, you can go find their GoFundMe. It's on my community page. I posted a while back because they needed to raise like $7,000 to get all of their stuff there. They are super, super excited. And now that Ralph's phone is done, that was my last rush job. So I am going to head to Michigan, and I will see you guys when I get back.